parenting. Quack. I always find that entertaining when I listen to it later. So, Dwayne Wade responds to ex-wife's petition to block daughter Zaya's name, or son's Zaya's name, gender change. So, former Miami Heat player Dwayne Wade took to Instagram Thursday morning to respond to a legal filing from his ex-wife, Siobhan Funches Wade. That is a very interesting way, because I'm sure it's supposed to be saying Siobhan, but it's just a weird way of spelling it. Who objects to their transgender son, and I believe his original name is Zion, legally changing their name and gender. Since this must be a new way of parenting, I guess I have to address these allegations here, which is a damn shame. Dwayne Wade began. Quote, and this is his Instagram post. While I'm on a life-changing trip in our motherland, Africa, I've received a social media post about me forcing our 15-year-old child to be sent when he's not, and to do something against their will, which is totally what he's doing. These are serious and harmful allegations that have hurt our children. While none of us are surprised by Siobhan's attempt to fight Zaya's identity and her unwavering attempt to drag my name through the mud, I'm very disappointed that she continuously finds ways of centering herself and her needs without regards to her children. This report came out while Zaya was in class. This is a kid who has maintained a 4.0 GPAs in honors classes while navigating all this unsolicited and harmful attention and debates about his gender and sexuality from those who are committed to not listening to him, much less even knowing him. Oh no. So he petitioned the court on August 22nd, asking that his 15-year-old son be allowed to change his name to Zaya Malachi Aramis Wade, while Fuchs Wade claims to not have been notified prior to the filing. Dwayne Wade says that Siobhan has decided to pretty much be absent parent to Zaya all on her own.
You know something interesting, Stephen?
And all Fuchs Wade, or all Siobhan wants to do is to wait and prevent her former husband from allowing Zaya to legally change her name and gender until she turns 18.
Mm-hmm.
The age of majority to make permanent changes to our identity.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think that goes far enough, but oh my gosh, like your ex-husband is even opposing to that. Your ex-husband is a terrible person.
Yeah. You know something I'm finding interesting, Stephen? I'm reading this on NBC News. This is a quote from the family. It said, Zaya, who's the boy here, knew two things. He knew straight and he knew gay. But Zaya started doing more research. He was the one that sat down with his family and said, "Hey, I don't think I'm gay." And he went down the list and said, "This is how I identify myself. This is my gender identity." So here's my question: they said like that this kid, they knew what if they could tell if they were gay or not.
Yeah.
How does a kid know that they're gay? Because like think about it this way: you're entering the world, you've never experienced having romantic feelings for like the other sex, because that emerges when you hit puberty. Like any adult can tell you. You tell me, Stephen. I can tell anybody else, any adult can look at that and can remember and be like, when you started getting feelings, opposite sex, when you hit puberty. A child who's 3 years old, they don't know what that is. All they know is they have generic feelings where I like my friend. I like that friend. They don't actually know what that is. Their only experience is
and of course, like if you the age in which he announced that his son was changing into a girl,
3 years old.
His son was 12 when they were officially announcing. You don't decide that at 12.
But they also claim that he knew when he was 3.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
That's their
like
that's
this
their,
is
language.
I totally agree with Matt Walsh's perspective on this. Dwayne Wade was a mediocre NBA player.
Yep.
Who milked it for all he's worth, and now that he's retired and he's losing popularity and he's losing attention and he's losing focus, this is the time when he decides, okay, now I'm going to try and return to the focus of attention. It's all going to be on me, and I'm going to use my son as a puppet for my campaign to be still relevant again so that I can be celebrated by these insufferable mobs of the LGBT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that you should always think about. Okay, like that whole thing, like the whole like it's a common video, like like it's like, are we the baddies? Like like the German, like German soldiers who are like realizing we're the bad guys and all that.
Happens all the time in D&D.
Always ask yourself this question: who is benefiting financially?
Yep.
Because usually
it's not
in
Zayar
any
or
scenario,
Zion.
the people who are benefiting financially are usually the bad guys. Let me give you a couple examples. If you think about like slavery, who was benefiting from slavery financially? It was the slave owners. So there's a financial benefit to them. Who was benefiting financially from like the Holocaust? It was obviously the Germans, because they were like literally robbing all the Jews of all their property and all their assets and all this kind of stuff. In abortion, who's benefiting financially from abortion? It's the doctors, and it's all of the Planned Parenthood and all these people who are getting all these benefits. And finally, who's benefiting from who are the bad guys in the vaccine thing? Clearly, the people who are benefiting from these vaccines being sold everywhere.
Yep.
So here, if you apply that logic and you apply it here to the story about Dwayne Wade, is there any financial incentive? Yes. He's getting all sorts of money from doing this.
Well, because the more attention, the more popularity he gains, then of course, the more opportunity that he has to do advertisements and social media campaigns and all of this to try and still garner what little popularity he had left, instead of fading into obscurity with the $200 million that he made being a mediocre player in the NBA.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's basically also making it virtually impossible for his son to ever be a detransitioner.
Yep.
He's basically making that up like that. That's how incredibly difficult it is, because he's too high profile.
Yep.
I think somebody talked about the I Am Jazz.
Yep.
That transgender, somebody talked about it recently, and I remember hearing they said that Jazz, they've kind of dropped off the map, but they also kind of showed some pictures, and they showed that Jazz has put on a crap ton of weight. It's not body shaming; it's more like when I remember a friend of mine, she has an autistic daughter. They had to put her on all these crazy drugs in order to help her with all of the things that were going on in her mind. She had a whole bunch of what do you call it? She has some very serious mental issues, and so in order to help her, they had to put her on these drugs, and these drugs actually caused an immense amount of weight gain. I think the same thing's happening with I Am Jazz, because this poor child has basically been put on lifelong medical interventions, and as a result, I think that this is messing with her entire body, and I think this is why she's gaining so much weight, because of all this medical interventions. But if the problem is Jazz, what are they going to do? They're too high profile.
Yep.
They can't undo it. They can't go back, because if they go back, they're going to be dropped and abandoned by everyone. They're going to be dropped like a rock, and unfortunately, that means that any support that they may have had in any kind of anything, it's going to be gone.
Yep.
So unfortunately, Dwayne Wade's doing this to their
child.
child.
Dwayne Wade's doing it to his child, and then he pretends, of course, that he's doing this to support them. So this is how he defines what role a parent has. Sorry, everybody.
It's pretty incredible. What keeps you going, fighting for her?
Just being a father, and just seeing our child grow up every day, and doing what you're supposed to do as a parent is to make sure that you sit back and you see what it is in life that they want to do, and you try to go there with them and try to help them mold them into what it is they want to be and who they want to be. So we're just doing our part, as parents, and we love our kids, and we get to see them every day. That's what people on the outside don't get to see, but we know them and we see them all the time. So.
Yeah, and we believe them when they tell us who they are.
What do you say to a dad out there whose daughter has just come home and said, I'm trans? What do you say to that dad?
Well, I say the moment when you were in the hospital and you grabbed your daughter and you looked at your daughter and all the things that went through your mind, all the emotions that went through your mind, and how much love filled your heart at that moment. don't let that ever leave you, no matter what. Like, the one thing as parents, what we do is we find our mini-me's and we try to make them just like us. We just understand, like, our kids are going to be who they are. It's our job to help mold them and help try to, push them in the right places that they want to go. But just remember that moment, what you said in that hospital that day they were born.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's his parenting advice.
Yeah, that's his parenting advice is, well, we should allow our kids to do what they want. We shouldn't be focused on making them into mini-me's. We shouldn't be focusing on guiding them the way that they should go. Oh, we're guiding them the way that they want to go.
So in other words, kids take the lead.
Yeah, kids. Well, that's his way of saying it's just like, well, this wasn't my idea. This was my kid's idea. It's like, oh yes, your kid at 12 years old totally said, I'm trans, and decided to mold their entire. No, you groomed them, you massive schmuck. And then you're kind of playing it off. Oh, this is what they wanted. We're just going along and we're being good parents and we're being supportive and loving. No, you are using them to your own fiscal, financial, and emotional gain. You love the attention. You couldn't even think of losing the spotlight. And so everything for you is, and I'm getting a bit of feedback from Danny here. It's all about how you benefit. Your child is going to suffer for the rest of their lives. And Danny, I lost your video. Just there.
Yeah, I got it.
And there's no way that they can go back on this decision, because otherwise they will be haunted and they will be attacked forever. And while Danny sorts that out, I'll address the second point that Dwayne made. Dwayne said, oh, it's just like, oh, if somebody comes out, you have to think about when, like, you first held your kids in your arms and the feeling you felt then. It's like, as a parent, the feeling that I felt when I held each of my kids, you pick them up and you think to yourself, okay, I am going to, of course, love them and protect them for the rest of their lives. But you also think to yourself, I have to mold this child into the best outcome for them. I have to not try and make them into a different version of myself. I have to try and turn them into a better person than me. None of our parents were saints. Nobody's parents are. We have to take the mistakes that our parents made and we have to pass on to our children so they don't make the mistakes that we made.
Yeah.
It's not about living their truth. It's about making them into upright, moral, righteous people. That's what parenting is. And that means correcting them, and that means telling your kids when they're wrong.
Yeah, the most important word you'll learn when you're a parent? No. Basically, the most crucial word you should be able to tell your kids. Because here's the thing. If your kids tell you, well, here's what I want to eat, then you basically go out of the house and you basically buy Frosted Flakes, and they have Frosted Flakes for dinner every night. Like, yeah, you're following them, but that you're the parent.
You're making your kids happy, but you're not benefiting them in any way.
Yeah,
this is neither. This is not it's not making their kids happy. Or if it is making their kids happy, it's because you brainwashed them.
Well, it's in the short term. You're catering to your child who is misguided, and you're not taking any responsibility as a parent. You're basically trying to justify your bad parenting by saying, "Well, this is what they want, and I'm just supportive."
Yeah, I'm just being helpful.
If your kid decides, I'm going to play out in the street, every single day, and this is like a busy road or something like that, you're playing with his friends. You're like, well, I'm supporting them because that's what they want. I'm like, you should be the one telling them, like, that is super dangerous. No, you're not going to be playing, like this game of Frogger on the highway trying to avoid getting hit by cars, because that's incredibly dangerous. This is not good parenting advice, but unfortunately, in the modern day, parents are basically parents aren't really given much of a choice. They're told you must support this cult of children know best, and you can't defy them, you can't even oppose them. One of the things that I found really really sad about when I was when I was kind of listening to that Ali Beth Stuckey interview with that researcher, is that the transgender community is trying very, very hard to sexualize children at a very young age, because one of the problems is that if a child gets introduced to sexual material too early, it's almost guaranteed they're going to be like involved in pornography, and that's going to lead to all sorts of sexually deviant
Mm-hmm.
behaviors later in life. And sadly, is we think that this is an accident. No, no, this is on purpose, because they know if they expose children to really like problematic content way too early,
Yeah.
they know that the likelihood of them becoming sexually deviant and really becoming like open to all sorts of corruption, it becomes very easy. This is the reason why you don't show children a super scary movie when they're too little and too young to really be able to handle it, because they'll have nightmares for weeks. And I've heard of people that say they watched like The Exorcist or some super crazy scary movie when they were really, really little, and even today they say like, yeah, I'm still scarred by that,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not ready.
Nope.
But they're trying to and this is what Dwayne Wade is doing. He calls it compassion, but it's really cruelty, because you're basically you're giving your child instant gratification for long-term
For
loss.
long-term loss and long-term suffering.
And this poor kid's gonna grow up, and one day Zion is gonna realize what his dad did to him,
Yep.
and he's never gonna be able to forgive him
Mm-hmm.
because he ruined his life.
Yep.
He's gonna
He
be
did.
totally sterile. He's gonna be a lifelong medical, basically
Yep.
like lab rat, because he's gonna
Mhm.
have to
Oh, it's
rely
just
on
gonna
all
be surgery
interventions.
after surgery and procedure after procedure, and an
And
endless
drugs,
list of a cocktail of drugs.
Yep.
Because that's
And
what
they're
these people suffer through, because it's all about pushing an agenda, and they don't care about these people's lives once they have them.
yeah, because it's not compassionate. They're using these children.
Yep.
And Dwayne Wade is just playing along. So he's actually failing at his one most important role, which is to protect his children. And instead of protecting, this poor child from these predators, he's letting them have them.
He's letting them at his own children. What a
Yep.
monster.
Mhm.
But he is only one douche of this week, but he is not the official douche of the week,
Mhm.
for that is reserved for Anne Hathaway.